The U.S. Department of Justice releasing this indictment against Steve Metheny, a former vice president of Carson Helicopters of Grants Pass, and Levi Phillips, a former maintenance director. The court document alleges that the two conspired to defraud the U.S. Forest Service by falsifying information about their aircrafts. The reason? The U.S. government claims that Carson Helicopters actively solicited bids from the U.S. Forest Service between March and October of 2008. During that time, they say Metheny falsified information about weight, balance, and performance of their firefighting helicopters to gain a competitive advantage over other companies and secure some $20 million in contracts. The Carson proposal showed the helicopter could carry a bigger payload than other competitors. The indictment also alleges that Metheny knowingly altered helicopter performance charts and distributed them to pilots and in-flight manuals for use in the field, which they charge ultimately endangered the safety of the aircraft and flight.
It's a tragic day for firefighters everywhere.
Back in August of 2008, one of those Carson helicopters, a Sikorsky S-61N that was on a wildland firefighting mission, suddenly fell from the sky and crashed in the Shasta Trinity National Forest after being airborne for less than a minute. The helicopter was carrying a crew of grayback firefighters who were battling the Iron 44 complex fire. 9 people died, 4 others were seriously injured.
I'm truly at a loss, because I knew every one of them like a brother.
Since that deadly day in 2008, 2 years later, the NTSB ruled that Carson's deliberate understatement of weight by some 1,400 pounds caused the fatal crash. Carson denied wrongdoing, citing engine failure. But in a civil suit against General Electric, the engine's manufacturer, the plaintiffs, a surviving pilot and the family of a pilot who was killed, insisted that General Electric knew the fuel control valve in the engines it made for the Sikorsky had a design flaw that made them unsafe. In March of last year, a Portland jury ordered GE to pay nearly $270 million to the plaintiffs, noting that Carson Helicopters was only partially at fault. The jury found GE to be 57% responsible.
It represents a day of possibly having this flight finally be over. This has always been about truth.
Flash forward to Monday. Upon learning of the indictments of 2 longtime employees, Carson Helicopters released the following statement, indicating that they continue to fully cooperate with the U.S. Attorney's Office. They said, quote, Carson Helicopters learned about the conduct of Steve Metheny and the company terminated his employment in 2009. Upon learning of today's indictment of Levi Phillips, Carson Helicopters suspended Mr. Phillips' employment with the company, end quote. NBC5 attempted to get an official response, and when we arrived at their Grants Pass operation, we found Carson employees mulling about in the parking lot, not wishing to talk, but carrying boxes to their cars. A company representative informed us that Carson Helicopters was shutting down their office in Josephine County immediately for business reasons. The Carson representative told me the company is streamlining operations and consolidating with their Percy, Pennsylvania location.